Leadership Lunch Chat with Amy Vetter and Jennifer Wilson, and we are super late. Our normal noontime chat has become a 12:30 Eastern chat today because of technology issues, and our normal streaming platform wasn't working, so we went to handy-dandy Zoom. So we might look a little bit different in the way that we're coming across, but we're going to do a quick chat with you guys anyway. We've persevered. We've been unstoppable, and I want to thank Emily Brantz on our team, who has been furiously working with our issues. So our hope today is to talk a little bit about reopening, talk a little bit about agility, maybe some unintended consequences, and talk about where's the money. So let's jump in there, Amy. Talk about reopening a little bit and unintended consequences, or really what you're experiencing or seeing.
Yeah. So I in two ways, talked to accounting firm leaders this week, but also opening my own yoga studio. And you can plan for everything you can plan for, and then like Jennifer said, there's unintended consequences. So we can go the best that we can with what the regulations are and what we're supposed to do with reopening. Part of what we're doing when we're reopening is having people sign a liability waiver each day that they don't have a fever, that they haven't been around someone with COVID, and so forth. What is unintended is that we've had to turn away customers that work in hospitals or healthcare places, which we didn't expect or even think about with those liability waivers. So we're trying to come up with new ways for that to work. But I think it's the same thing when you're having people come back into an office, what people are concerned about, that maybe they're taking care of aging parents and are concerned with the other people that are around them of what they have, or people that live at home with people that are sick and so forth. And so these are the things that sometimes we don't think about when we're putting all of our processes in place, and how we're going to make sure that we can be agile through it, that, we come up with what we think is going to work. And then how do we keep talking, coming back to what works, what didn't work, what will we do different, because this is that time that you're going to think that you put things in place, and then you're going to learn new things, and you have to keep shifting.
Yeah, the agility idea, right? The idea that, well, I guess we love to roll a program out and then just have small refinements, but when we've got these unintended consequences, they're big refinements maybe. And I think firms are usually set up to do one big rollout and then move on to the next thing. And they're maybe not really used to doing this sort of sprint, scrum type method where we do it in a small sprint and then refine and refine as we go. I'm taking care of aging parents. My parents are 90. And they live half a mile from me and are my best friends. And, but we help feed them, and I go there almost every day. My dad's got a hardcore sweet tooth, and I'm a baker, and so I bring him stuff. And I have to tell you that that's on my mind with every single person that I'm with. Every single thing I do, I think about, would this possibly expose me in a way that I would expose them? And so I think you're doing the right thing by asking those questions. And it's sad that some people can't come, and at work in a CPA firm or a consulting firm, if you say, have you been around anybody exposed, who has COVID, I think maybe a lot of them will say no, but their spouses may be exposed every day, or significant others. And, and that raises your risk, and this whole crisis has been about risk tolerance, and
Mm-hmm.
and calculated risk and risk management. And I'm not sure that most of us have studied it as a discipline or really paid attention to, what is my risk tolerance? I have been really faced with a lot of risk tolerance kind of questions related to going back out there and on the road. My team and I, we travel, and you do too, Amy. We're road warriors, and this is the road warrior time of the year. We're not doing it this year, which is sad, but also awesome. Speaking of unintended consequences, I probably have the best flower garden ever if the sun will shine. But on the, people are trying to book us for like September or August physical in-person gigs, and I'm like, so, let's picture it for a second. Social distancing, 6 feet apart in a meeting room with the mask on, all of us wearing the masks, do you really want to do that? And I think some people are still not really projecting that. They're not getting the social distancing and the masks and that stuff. They're picturing like somehow miraculously we won't need them in 60 days. And maybe we won't, but unless we have a vaccine or everybody has the antibodies, or the treatment for this is found a quicker, better treatment, I think we're still going to have masks on, and I think we're going to have to stay 6 feet apart. So it's challenging.
I think one of the things that, I was talking about this with someone yesterday of like, why do we have to follow what the government tells us and that sort of thing? Because as a business owner, you can be sued. It isn't even just the government. So, it's thinking about what your policies were before as you walk in the door, but also being very hyper alert to each individual circumstances and that you have that set up. So, in my business, we've got both a mix of physical and virtual happening so that there's those options for people. But we've also had to talk to each person individually on whether they're okay to come back to work
100%.
and make sure that they feel comfortable and so forth. And if they don't, I think it's important to understand why and be compassionate about it, but also make sure that you've built a workplace that isn't, where you exclude people that have concerns and they're real concerns, right? And I also think it's important, like I said before, that as we walk through this process that, I talked to a firm last week where they're having daily huddles with the leadership team. Every day, how are things going? What are you hearing? What do we need to do? So just when I talk about agile work environment, those are the types of things that have to be put in place. And it's not just, well, we're going to keep pushing that way. We really have to listen to what's happening in those huddles and figure out, brainstorm as a team, not feel like you have to do it alone, of how you can address that. And if you want to address it, it doesn't mean you have to, but at least having the awareness is really important.
I agree. And I think that one size fits one, like tailored customization for the reopening plan around people's risk tolerance and what the risk factors are, not just being in the high risk category by age or pre-existing disease, but having aging parents that you're taking care of, or young babies or young children that you're afraid to get sick, or whatever the circumstances are. Employers are going to have to figure it out. And I think we need to brace ourselves for a lot of people wanting to stay home because they found that they can work from home, and not just because they like it, but because their risk tolerance is low, and they'd rather sort of let the trial balloon float for a while. You guys that feel brave, you go ahead and get back in the office, and we'll watch and see what happens over there, and hopefully nobody will get sick and we'll feel safer and we can come behind you. And I think that firms are, some firms are really gung-ho about reopening, and almost like, we're going to have a party when we finally get back there. We'll be so excited to be together, and there's I think a small little cluster of leaders that feel that way, and then a whole bunch of staff that are like, no way, and clients too that are, I've heard some people say we have clients who aren't giving us their stuff for the 1040 processing yet, and they're not digital, and we're waiting till we can bring them back in for normal tax meetings. And I'm like, oh no, please no, we got to go digital. Yeah, we've got to go digital. We've got to figure it out, even if it's taking pictures of their paper. But then I've heard, like, partners meeting the client in an Applebee's parking lot, and taking their shoebox, so that they can help them. And I guess if we have to do that, that's okay, but that's not going to get us to the new normal. It's not going to get us to that digital transformation we absolutely have to do, whether it was a pandemic or next gen, clients that were going to demand it. We have to get there. Yeah. And so, I'm a little worried about all of that, sort of like, we can't do anything till we go back to the way it was. That's just so disappointing.
I think that's where proactive communication needs to come in. So where you can segregate. So one of the things that I think is really important is surveying your staff separately from your clients of what they're comfortable with. We did that at the studio before opening, and we were very surprised that, less than 50% really wanted to come in physically. From what you hear, you think people are ready, but they're not necessarily ready, even with the stay-at-home order lifted. So it's important to understand that and let people be anonymous as well when they're giving feedback too. But from a client standpoint, crafting those questions right is really important so that you can assign work for all of those clients that are those manual clients, where you can get on the phone with them, walk them through the technology, handhold them through the process and start teaching them, rather than letting the client lead you. And I think that's happened too many times, where that's the reason many firms are in the situation that they're in without technology, because it's easier to go, oh, the client's not ready. Where the client would probably be ready if you just help them, and you feel confident in it. Yeah.
The other thing is that multi-partner firms, classically, it's hard to run as one firm. It's easier to run as a bunch of silos. And the number one reason that silos persist is because partners don't want to submit to a unified process, and their number one objection is, my clients won't like it, which almost always is invalid. And if 5 partners are together and one partner's clients won't like it, and that's holding us back, then maybe that partner doesn't fit here, or those clients aren't our clients, So, but the survey idea, take it out of the hands of the people that are telling anecdotal stories and go get some statistical data and find out, But if people are resisting because the clients don't want it, let's go prove that with some data, as opposed to just taking, and the same thing with reopening, Amy. I mean, I think your point is really brilliant about your clients saying to you, half of them, hey, I'm in no rush to come back. The yoga remotely is working for me. And that's like a surprising finding. There are things that we think we know because there's a few squeaky wheels saying them. But then when we get the data, we discover that it's different than what we thought. And I don't think firms are operating that way. The other thing I think they're doing is they're operating not just without good data about what clients want or what the talent want. They're operating a little bit selfishly, like what I want. Yeah. Like, partner here, or I'm the chief operating officer, or I'm the firm administrator, and it would be easier for me if you people would all just come back here. This is not working that great for me. So, and that's the last reason that we should go back to the old way, because it's easier for somebody, regardless of ownership percentage or book of business size. We should be doing what's right for the new normal. Now, I heard, I was on a CPA FMA call this week talking about HR trends, and one of the participants shared that they had heard from the Michigan Society of CPAs, either the executive director or president, I can't remember which, who was saying, not the new normal. We're not going to the new normal. We're going to go to the new better. And I loved that. I thought that was such a cool phrase, a cool way of thinking. Yes. What would the new better be? And I hope that firms are imagining that as they're dreaming up their reopening plans.
Yeah, and what it does is actually make you step back and go, was it the right way before? Because I think it's too easy to try to, push, well, this is the way we always did it before, so we're going to do it this way when we come back. And it's important that we take this opportunity to ideate, innovate, come up with new ways of working. And I think, I've talked to a lot of people where they're like, why are we paying for the office? Why are we paying for all this stuff? Like, if, just yesterday, I talked to someone that at their company, they're giving every person $1,500 allowance to set up their office at home, and they're not going to open their office space again. So if it's working, it's working. And if you can hire people from anywhere in the country or the world, then you've got this opportunity to get the best talent possible for the work that you're doing.
Yeah. And, right before COVID hit, we were freaking out because we didn't have enough people. Yeah. And we were encouraged, and so capacity was our number one challenge. And as soon as the economic uncertainty lifts, we're going to be right back there times 5 probably. I mean, it's going to be tight and terrible. And so outsourcing and offshoring are real strategies that firms have to think about, and gig workers, all of whom are typically remote. So figuring this out isn't just like the pandemic. I got to figure it out for the pandemic. I got to figure it out for a future where our capacity is under attack and where we're going to be constantly seeking resources to help us deliver services, and those resources won't live locally. So we got to figure it out. And the firm you're talking about that's given the $1,500 allowance and saying we're not going to reopen in our physical premise, they're probably at a renewal point. You're lucky if you're at a lease renewal point, or if I'm serious. It's like, thank God you could really rethink your size of space, but I've been telling firms, like listening to firm administrators and CEOs talk about all the stuff they're ordering, signage, plastic barriers, hand sanitizer in volumes, masks, gloves, all this stuff. And I'm like, and they're taping the walls to show 6 feet in distance and which direction in the office you're going to go this way down that hallway so we can avoid. And they're in there doing that right now. And I'm just thinking to myself, wow, why? Really? I understand the reasons why, like the CDC reasons, but I wonder if all that investment and all that time and worry and, to just drag everybody back in there, does that make sense right now? Is that the right use of our time? Instead of how can we package and price and deliver coaching services to clients and start monetizing all this advice we're giving? How could we build, product codes and get out there and start teaching our people how to sell those services to clients and getting cash flowing on some things that should be the new better? Is the new better tape on walls that say which direction to walk? Is that, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Where's your best use of time right now?
Yeah, really, I'm wondering, and listening to it, I'm cringing, thinking, oh, terrible use of time.
Yeah.
That's how it feels, and I'm not belittling it. I understand why they're doing it, but I am questioning it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's time to step back and make sure that you're assessing the work that you're doing, where you're spending your time, and ensuring that you are spending the time on the most valuable things that are going to take you into the future, and the temporary things. How can you spend little, I can't even say it, littler. That doesn't sound right. Minimize that amount of time rather than having that an equal amount of time to the future planning.
Right. Yeah. And I think that firms that figure out how to have a competitive advantage in remote service delivery, firms that figure out how to package and price advisory coaching packages for clients, firms that figure out how to digitally transform, I would much rather have you invest your time there than figuring out whether or not we should allow people to stand in the doorway of a cubicle. Like the new list of rules, what are they? Only 2 people in the lunchroom at a time or whatever, If you think about it, where should we spend our time and energies?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, good.
Well, yeah, so I think this is good. We're going to start late and end short because we both have to go someplace. But But we're really glad to have caught up again. I'm certainly glad to see your face and hear your voice. I'm glad your yoga studio is partially open, and I thank you for taking that risk, and we'll benefit from that learning as you go. So thanks for sharing about it today, and thanks everybody for coming. We welcome your comments. We'd love it if you gave us some subjects that you wanted to make sure we cover. So don't hesitate to hit up Amy or me with ideas, either in social media or email, and we'd love to have you participate with us in the future. So thanks, everybody.
See you later.
See ya.